gonna get out of the way and let you talk.
Being introduced by the job father, that's a privilege.
Oh my God.
Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. They told me if they video this and if I walk too far into the audience, it cuts off my head, so that's probably a good thing. I like to kind of stand down here. I don't know how much of that's going to work, but my name is Peter Leahy, and as my little graphic up here shows, I want to talk to you today about networking because this concept is so simple, but it's generally missed. It's a contact sport. So it's in black and white, my whole presentation for the most part, because this is a black and white topic. It's just either you do it or you don't, and it's not that hard. So let's see if I do it the right way. Am I pushing the right button? Okay, we're off to a booming start. Boom. All right. First of all, I want to congratulate everybody that's here, because for every one of you that's here, there's 100 job seekers at home drinking coffee in their pajamas. And you guys got out of bed, you got dressed, and you came here. And that's 90% of this battle, is just getting out and being part of a bigger group. And like the slide says, for those, there were a lot of hands that went up today that this is your first time here. This is a networking group, okay? And what that means is we talk to each other. We walk around, and Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're gonna have an opportunity to shake hands and network? Okay, so we're gonna talk about how to do that today, and hopefully, I was talking to Shannon. Shannon, where are you? Shannon, unbelievable background in education, a truly experienced, valuable executive. But he said, I'm an introvert, and networking makes me a little uncomfortable. I get it. That's just part of the process. But what I told Shannon and what I'll tell you is it's all about having a plan. And if you just think through some steps that you can do to become better and to just get over that initial fear, networking becomes actually quite easy, and we're going to talk about that. So use these meetings to your advantage. So that's where we're going. So let's see if I can keep rolling here. So this is me. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to do that. I coach every Friday at Market Street in Colleyville, Texas, with the South Lake Focus Group. I help people with their interview prep so they can go to the pit crew and get the real tough guys at the pit crew, right, Ron? But what I've found, and the reason I'm here today, is that I spend as much time helping people think about how to find a job as I do how to do an interview. So that's what prompted this conversation. So my whole career started in sales. Worked for CPG, which is consumer packaged goods. So companies that you would be familiar with, Frito-Lay, Coca-Cola, Colgate-Palmolive, my favorite, Coors Brewing Company. I've hired lots of people, I've interviewed lots more. I landed my biggest job ever in my whole career by networking, and I'm going to tell you that story in a second. I also never started, this is kind of an admission, so I'm not an expert at this because I only started networking really 10 years ago. When you're in corporate America, especially as you get up the food chain, people call you. You don't have to network, or at least that's what I thought, and this was all pre-LinkedIn. And now, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile that's done well, then you're gonna, not exist in the eyes of some recruiters in some cases. I consider myself, and I've met people around the Metroplex, they call themselves connectors. And that's because I have a skill that I didn't even know I had, where I just think of people when I meet people. So what I developed over the past 10 years was this reputation that if you needed to meet somebody, you needed to talk to Leahy. And there are people like that out there, and you need to find them. That's part of it. The one thing that I notice is that job seekers have a tendency to obsess on a few things. Why does my clicker not move? There we go. So these are the things. Anybody here worked on any of these? Show of hands, everybody, right? Okay. So when I sit down with somebody, they're in the process of one of these, and usually not the last one. That's the one that most people avoid the most. But the fact of the matter is, they're all important, but they can become a problem if you're too obsessed with them. Why is this not working? Which button am I pushing here? I need batteries. There we go. Nope, went the wrong way. Now I know how to go backwards. Any ideas here, gang? Boom, okay. So these are all important. I'm so sorry about this, technologically challenged. But the thing that I will tell you is that throughout the course of your job search, you're going to get better at this if you practice. So you don't have to have it perfect before you start. And this is the biggest single stumbling block to people getting out there. I need my LinkedIn profile to be perfect. Go talk to Terry Sullivan, he'll get you hooked up, you know. I need my resume to be perfect. Well, Pete can do that in 30 minutes on a Friday at Market Street. I need all of these things to be perfect. And what it is, it's an excuse for not just putting yourself out there. And there are events like this virtually every day. I just literally got a message on LinkedIn about a big event that's happening on Thursday that I will try to find it before I leave if anybody's interested. It's in Dallas. There are going to be hundreds and hundreds of business people there, and it's a great time to connect. So we can improve on these. There we go. But look at these numbers. And these are directional, okay? These are numbers that I've been told. Only 4% of people that apply for a job on LinkedIn actually get one. 45% of the jobs on LinkedIn aren't real. How can a job be on LinkedIn and not be real? Well, meet Peter Leahy. I was the VP of sales for a division of Colgate. What you learn as leaders, when you meet really great people, you hire them. You find them and you hire them. And I would meet them networking. And when I hired them, HR was so mad at me. They'd say, "You didn't post the job." I'm like, "That's okay, go ahead." And they would post it. And then they would take it down because I already hired somebody. That's one of hundreds of reasons that people post jobs. Another one, they're doing salary studies. So you get a 5-question screening when you apply that asks you what salary you expect. Now I know that if I'm hiring an account manager in Alabama, I'm going to have to pay between $60,000 and $80,000 because that's what the 100 applications said. Then I take it down. So that's not that you shouldn't be applying there. I would never say that. But just understand that the percentage is fairly low. So don't spend your whole day. I'm not going to ask for this question, but I've asked it before. How many resumes have people sent to applications? And there are people that I've met that are over 500 that haven't even gotten a rejection letter. So that's the terrifying part. And the most important thing, the most encouraging, depends on how you look at it. There's an old joke about the guy he's a shoe company, sends a salesman down into the South American jungle to try to sell shoes, and the guy calls back and says, I can't sell any shoes here, nobody's wearing shoes. Then he sends the second rep down there, and the guy calls him after 2 days, this is the most unbelievable opportunity, nobody wears shoes. This is great. So the dilemma is 80% of jobs are never posted. They're filled through word of mouth. So how do you get into that flow? That's networking. Is that me, or what's doing this? Yes, please. Thank you.
Years, and I have that question about why do you have that 75 to 80% jobs that were never posted? Because being a talent leader, I know that that's not the case.
Okay. So Forbes magazine is wrong. That's where I got the number. But I'm not arguing with you. Let's say that it's directional. Would you be still upset if it was 50? I can tell you that it's way easier to get a job before it's posted.
I understand the proactive networking is really, really important to have the relationship with the hiring manager. But having said that, all of us, have to post jobs to fill them. Maybe it's 4 days and we already have finalized somebody, but we have to post a job legally.
So I think there's the key on
Yeah.
Thank you, Ron.
there's the key on the language. It says they're never posted. What it really means is by the time it gets posted, 75 to 80% have already either been hired or an offer put on the table, because I experienced it all the time as a hiring manager myself. Very rarely did I post a job that I didn't have a seat, a person already there. So I think it's just the way it's possibly worded.
Fair point all around. I'm just going to do a warning label on this. HR people are probably not going to like my presentation. And I'm not being a joke. It's because I'm going to give you some radical ideas. That's why I'm here, if I can make this clicker work. So there is another way to applying for jobs, and I'm so proud of this because I asked ChatGPT to make an exponential chart of what networking looks like, and this is what it gave me. So is that the coolest picture ever? So basically that's my mind, what a network looks like, is that, as I was telling the guys at my table, I have, 900 people in my phone. And whenever I sit down on Fridays with people to coach them, I'll try to think, once I hear them, who should they talk to? And so you draw this chart of how one person connects to the next and connects to the next. That's what we're going to talk about. So we got to get out there and get networking. And the bottom line is, for some of us, that's getting out of the comfort zone. So what we want to talk about today is, how do we do that? What are some ideas? It's working really well now. And this statement is true, and I'm going to talk, we're going to become good friends by the end of this, I promise you. But I believe, generally speaking, that most people, not all people, but most people are helpful. They like to help. In my own personal experience, I've found that the more senior level you get, the more willing they are to help you. But you have to ask them the right way. And this is where I kind of get a little bit divergent from some other approaches. My favorite word in the whole dictionary when it comes to job seeking is advice. If you can remember one thing today, if you ask people for advice, you will be way more successful than if you ask for anything else. We have a strategy that we talk about all the time called an informational interview. Have anybody heard of that? Okay, nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're very hyper-targeted on an informational interview. You're going to the company you want to talk to. You've got the staffing director right there, and you want to meet her for a coffee and get some advice. But if you just ask for advice, it's amazing what can happen. You do it with let me back up. I'm too good at this. Okay. So the most important word is advice. The most important ingredient is authenticity. People can see through a fishing expedition. So the bottom line is, you just be genuine and say, listen, I worked in the hospitality industry, right, Brian, for 10 years, and now I want to pivot into more of a sales customer-facing role, and I'm just looking for advice on where to start. It's a great question. People will say, oh, that's interesting. And you can use different techniques to get past that. So I got 4 quick stories for you. First one is John. John came to Market Street on a Friday over in Colleyville, sat down in my little office desk, and said, I really need to find a new role. I like public speaking, and I think I want to get into sales. And he said, I don't have any experience, and I'm not sure where to start. So I went through my phone, and I found this guy who is a close friend of mine, and I'm going to introduce you to him at the end. And I said, you should talk to this guy. He's a connector. He knows everybody. Well, what should I say? Just call him and say, hey, I'm a friend of Peter Leahy's, and he said you know everybody, and you might be willing to give me 20 minutes of your time over a coffee to get some advice. How's next Tuesday sound? My friend took the meeting, hired him. How did that happen? That wasn't what I was expecting, but John landed a job with the guy that I recommended. Next guy, Rodrigo, same thing. Amazing guy in his 60s, was a senior executive in the hospitality industry, wanted to get out of it. Brian, there's the theme here. He wasn't sure where to start. He was from Colombia. He had a very heavy Colombian accent, spoke English as a second language perfectly, and he's in a suit. I mean, this guy is, right out of Fantasy Island, that guy? He looked just like him. And so I said, do you know Marianne Kellum? Because I'm scrolling, and her name popped up on my phone. She's the CEO of the Irving Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Why don't you talk to her? She knows a ton of people. He said, great. He called Marianne. Hey, I'm a friend of Peter Leahy's. Would love to get your advice. She hired him. Now, there's a theme here, but it's not about getting hired on the first phone call. It's about making the first phone call. So the third guy, Bob, this is a really fascinating one. He was an executive who'd been with the company for over 30 years and took a buyout. So he's in his 50s. He's on a buyout. He wants to stay in the industry, but he doesn't want to stay with the big corporate. He's looking for more of a startup. So I said, who comes to mind that you would like to work for? And so he gives me a couple names, and he said, well, the one I really want to work for, it's a startup. They're just getting started. The guy that owns it is a billionaire, and he's a recluse. He never gets out, but I would love to work for his new company that he's starting. Well, let's find him. So I sent Bob home for the week, and I said, your job is to find his mailing address, because we don't know where this guy is. So I don't know how he did it. I would love to find out, but he found that the guy had an office in Salt Lake City. So the next week we came back, and we wrote him a letter. Dear whatever. And Bob had remembered 5 years ago, this guy was a speaker at a conference. He said, we met briefly 5 years ago when you were speaking at this conference. I just left my big company, and I'm pivoting and looking for a smaller opportunity. Now, here's where it gets funny. He said, I go to Salt Lake about twice a month for business. He didn't, but we put that in there. Would love to get together the next time you guys, or the next time I'm up there. So he FedExed it to him, which I don't recommend because it's expensive. And then 1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. He comes in and he's like, that was a dumb idea. It didn't work, I said, well, you tried. And the next day he gets an email, and it's from this guy. This guy's a billionaire. And he says, I'm so sorry. My assistant lives in New York. I got the FedEx and just threw it in my inbox. And I would love to see you next time. When are you coming back? I'll be there week after next. Get that 14-day discount. Long story short, he said, I'll have my assistant set it up. Lady calls him from New York. He flies to Salt Lake City, spends 2 hours with this guy, has an unbelievable conversation. The guy said, I love your background. We're not quite ready for you yet, but let's stay in touch. So he talks to this guy about once a month. That's an amazing connection. I don't know any billionaires. He does now. And the last one is me, all right? So I was the vice president of sales for a division of Colgate-Palmolive. And as it happens often in senior sales or any management level, I was told that I was now occupationally challenged. And so I was sitting in my office in St. Louis, and I was trying to think of people, and I'll show you on the next list, that I know that I might get advice from. And I thought of this guy who I had worked for Frito-Lay right here in Plano, and I ran the Atlanta division for Frito-Lay back 15 years prior to me sitting in St. Louis. And the guy that was the senior VP of sales and marketing was now the CEO of the Coors Brewing Company. in Golden, Colorado. So I wrote him a letter, and it sounded something like this. Dear Leo Kiley was his name. You won't remember me, but my name is Peter Leahy, and we worked together at Frito-Lay 15 years ago. I was in Atlanta, you were in Dallas. I am looking for new opportunities, and I really, really want to explore the beer business, but I don't know where to start. I'm enclosing a resume not because I expect you to have a job for me, but so that you can see what I've been up to since we worked together. I'll call your office next week. Let's get 20 minutes on the calendar. I like 20 minutes. It's not too long, it's not too short. And generally, you're going to get more if it's at least interesting. So I just mailed the letter. I waited a week for it to go through the postal system. Now, the only number I had was the main number at Coors, just their main phone number on the internet. So I called it, and what was amazing to me, because I still didn't believe this was going to work, a friend of mine told me to do this. They transferred me right to his office, just from the main number, not even a hesitation. And I got his assistant, Lydia. I will never forget Lydia. This is Lydia. Hi, Lydia. My name's Peter Leahy. Oh, you wrote that letter. I did, yeah. Well, Leo read it, and he wrote right on here, make an appointment when he calls. Like, this can't be this easy, right? So I said, next week's great. He's traveling this week. So we made the appointment. I got on the phone with Leo. We reminisced about the days at Frito. And I said, I'm really trying to figure out where I should go. And he said, well, just come to work for us. And now I'm doubly shocked, right? Well, how do I do that? Well, I'm going to send your resume downstairs. Sorry, he didn't send it to HR. He sent it to the Senior Vice President of Strategic Planning, who had 8 projects that he was working on. And he said, if he doesn't call you back in the next 2 hours, call me again. So now just imagine you're Tim, you're down in the second floor, and Lydia comes down with a resume with a Post-it note on it from the CEO that says, good guy from Frito, let's find a place for him. That's what it said. Now, if I'd have tried to call Tim, I'd have never heard from the guy. But because I call this parachuting onto the roof. I parachuted onto the roof and got through Leo. Tim called me within an hour and said, how's your schedule for late next week? Can I send you a plane ticket for Wednesday afternoon? I'll get you a hotel for Thursday and Friday. I'll set up a bunch of interviews. I'm sure we'll find something that will be a good fit. So they flew me out. They sent a car. Now, I'm just a VP of sales. I'm not anything special. Picked me up in a car, put me up in a hotel, put me all through the interviews, and on Friday afternoon, they offered me the job to be the Vice President of National Account Sales for the U.S. for the Coors Brewing Company. Biggest salary I've ever had in my life, stock options, company car, everything. That whole process took 3 weeks, start to finish, because I reached out to the right person, and that's networking too. There's lots of ways to do this. So the first thing, I call it making your A-list. That's Leo. Leo was on my A-list. And this is not new. I mean, you may have already heard this, but the question is, have you done it, right? Make an A-list. These are people that could hire you today that you know or know of or have some sort of a connection to. Just like my friend Bob, all he did is listen to the guy speak. Second one is the B list. They may not be able to get you a job, but they know somebody that can, and they're also friends with you. So reach out to them. They're going to be friendly. LinkedIn messaging. I haven't had a ton of success with this, but I know people do. I think it's a great way to go, but the key is to do more than just say, I need your advice. Read their background. Shannon, look for those senior executives that have pivoted from education into another business. And then say, listen, I noticed on your background you pivoted from education into aerospace. I'm just curious, would you be able to give me a couple of tips on how you did that? Ask them a question. Don't ask them for a job, because if they do, they're going to send you to the staffing manager, right? But if you ask them for their, just some advice on this, you may get them to respond. And that's a goal. If you can connect and start a dialogue of any sort, there's no telling where that can lead. Emails are fine, but they're super easy to delete. I would encourage you, write a letter. I know it's old-fashioned. Some of you probably don't even know how to write cursive. My wife's nephew can't write cursive. He's 30 years old. Not being judgmental, just making a statement. You can call. I owned a magazine. I used to make 100 cold calls every Monday. It was the worst day of my life every Monday. Cold calls are really bad. You got to have a real great process for making cold calls. But the other thing that you can do is cold walk-ins. So we were talking about this, just walk into companies, you know. It's a good way to do research. You know, let's say you have an interview. Have you ever gone to the company beforehand and just gone into the receptionist and say, how's it like working here? You know, that's a whole story for another day, but you can walk in. The last thing, attend gatherings and meet people. And that to me is the easiest, fastest, and most effective, because that's where all the connections, we all have hundreds of people in our phone. And if somebody says, you know, I just need your advice, you know, I'm looking for a new opportunity, you're a nice person. You're probably going to say, well, what are you looking for? You know? And then you're going to think about it. And I ask this question, who comes to mind that you know that I should be talking to? So here's some interesting things that people don't think about. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about, I went to the University of Southern California. Foster went to UCLA, so sorry, Foster, you just didn't get in. So do you know that there are... Spoiled children. Yeah, right. So this is an ongoing thing between me and Foster. So there are 2,500 members of the Dallas-Fort Worth University of Southern California Alumni Club. Who knew, right? I didn't until I started looking it up. So just imagine how many there are from Texas or Texas Tech or, you know, what's that other one? Oh, Texas A&M, sorry. And so I'm going to go back. I went too fast. Now I'm getting too fast at this. There we go. Industry specific. There are tons of tech networking groups for all you tech guys out there. Just go to them, register, go. And so, you know, there's one that called the Capital Factory. They started down in Austin, Texas, and it's a bunch of venture capital guys that they have like a WeWork space, and they meet every week. And it turned into, like, you name it, every tech baron in the world, Tim Cook, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they've all been there to speak. So how cool would it be to just go hear him speak and then write him a letter? Hey, Jeff, I saw you last week at the tech thing. I need your advice. Maybe you'll respond. Maybe you won't, but you don't know. Ethnic associations. Had a friend of mine, he's African American. Did you know that there is a very large Black Chamber of Commerce in Dallas? What a great place to go. And you don't have to be Black to go there. These are all, they're associations. Just go there. There's an Asian. You been there, Foster? So, I don't deserve this. Geographic, you know, there's a group called the Mid-Market Professionals. They meet in Frisco, they meet in Plano, they meet in Alliance. And it's just it's business people. So you got to always understand that if you go to a business networking group, there's going to be a guy that's going to try to sell you life insurance. It's just a fact, okay, because that's what they do. But the fact is, play along, get a meeting. Who's your boss? You know, try to work your way up the food chain. Chambers of Commerce is probably the most powerful one that I think of as an easy, fast fix. I have a list of about 30 chambers just in the Metroplex that if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll send it to you. And it's just their email addresses or their websites. But chambers of commerce are very powerful. Does everybody understand what a chamber does? Do you mind if I explain for 2 seconds? So chambers are local businesses that support local businesses. So there's a Frisco Chamber of Commerce. I'm not sure where it is, but Frisco Chamber of Commerce has one goal, and that's to get Frisco businesses to join their chamber. And they pay. I was a member of the Irving Las Colinas Chamber. As a sole proprietor, I paid $490 a year to be a member. You don't have to be a member to go to the chamber. Microsoft, who is also in the Irving Chamber of Commerce, pays $25,000 to be a member. So they have these different grades of people, but you have business owners there. And who better to network with than business owners? So just they do events every month. Anybody been to Market Street for coaching? A lot of people. Do you know that the Colleyville Chamber is right across the parking lot from where we meet? And I'll bet you not very many people have stopped in there. Hannah is the CEO. Sounds really important, right? There are 3 employees in the Colleyville Chamber. Hannah, I think I have socks older than Hannah, and that's nothing against Hannah. She's super smart. She's an amazing lady, but what I'm trying to do is mitigate fear. Just because they call themselves the CEO, that doesn't mean you can't walk right in. And I've done it to multiple chambers just to test this idea. I was helping a friend look for office space in Grapevine. I saw the Grapevine Chamber. I'd never been in it. So I thought, well, I keep telling people to do this every week, so I'm going to do it and see what happens. So I just walked in. I wasn't prepared. I hadn't done any research. And on the reception area where there was nobody there because they work from home half the time, there are all the business cards. So I walked over. I found the CEO of the Grapevine Chamber. And about that time, this guy walks out and says, "Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm Peter Leahy. I'm just looking for LaDonna. Is she around?" And he's like, "Yeah, hang on a second." And he goes back, and out comes the CEO of the Grapevine Chamber. I talked to her for 30 minutes. And what was the worst thing that could have happened? Nothing. So if you haven't been to a local Chamber of Commerce, go. Go on the website first. Do some research. Most of them have a member directory. Now that makes it complicated because you're supposed to know the name. But what I learned is if you just put in a letter, you just put A, it'll give you all the businesses that start with A. So it's like, hey, there's a good hack. Then you find out if there's any businesses that are interesting there. And when you go in, you meet the CEO, you ask them, "Hey, I noticed that you're with Allegiant Title, and I would love to meet the owner of Allegiant Title. Do you know him or her?" You ask questions. You can be productive that way. So I usually say something like this. Just have a little speech. This is not perfect by any means. You have to tailor it to whatever you want to, but just tell people what you want. I'm looking for 15 or 20 minutes just to be able to connect with you and get your advice on how to how to meet people. So some of the keys that I said: be authentic. Try to learn about the other person first. So I met 3 people this morning: Troy, Brian, and Shannon. And all 3 of them, when I met them, I walked up to them, I stuck out my hand, and what did I say, Troy? See how impactful I was? I asked him, "What do you do?" That's how I start everything. Because my goal is to get the other person to talk first. It's really good for introverts. Be the first. Walk up, get the courage to stick your hand out and say, "My name's Peter Leahy, what do you do?" And they'll tell you. It's amazing how they'll tell you. Especially in a group like this, because everybody's practiced. They're ready to do that elevator pitch. And so when they finish, my second question is, how can I help you? What are you looking for? And if you offer that help first, you'll be amazed at how everything just starts to flow together. And this is what takes practice. It's having the courage to just go up there and ask people what they do, and then say, if they say, "Well, how can I help you?" That's the magic, right? Well, I'm just looking to meet some folks to build my network, and would love to meet your boss, or I'd love to meet you for coffee, depending on who it is. So the challenge is really about having a very simple plan. And when I was telling Shannon, he said, "I'm an introvert, but super, super smart. All we have to do is get over that initial hurdle of just breaking that ice. That's all it is." We had a great conversation. In 100 years, I would have never guessed that that's how he felt. He was warm, he was engaging, he's obviously super smart. Told me a lot about his background, and that's all it is. We're all humans, right? We want to just connect. Some of the things, oops, I did it again. So keep that concept of asking for advice, not for a job. It's really important. Just we're on an advice game right now. And the other thing is we're just looking to build our network. Who comes to mind that I should be talking to that you know? is a very powerful statement if you can practice doing that. I literally, every time I sit down with somebody and we have this conversation, I open my phone. And you can be more direct. Instead of saying who comes to mind, you can say who's in your phone that I should be talking to. Whatever it might take. You have to practice all these things. But that's what these groups are for. Another really important one, so when I was sitting in St. Louis, I wrote the letter to Leo at Coors, but I also had a chance. My wife worked for Purina, Checkerboard Square, the dog food company. And I had been the VP of sales of a dog food company. And I got the chance to meet the chief operating officer for Purina at his Christmas party with his wife in this beautiful home. So I wrote him the same letter that I wrote Leo. And I figured he'd want to talk to me because I was the VP of sales for his biggest competitor. So it was pretty much of an easy one. When I called down there, his assistant said, "Oh yeah, Terry wants to meet with you. Come down here and he'll take you out to lunch." And we had a great talk, and he's asking me all these questions, and I'm dodging, and not NDAs, and I can't violate my, all this stuff. So it became very apparent to me that I wasn't going to get a job at Purina. But I asked him, I said, "Terry, listen, you know everybody in this town. Who should I be talking to that could use somebody with my background?" And he pulled out his phone, and he gave me the names, email addresses, and phone numbers of 5 CEOs with big companies in St. Louis that he plays golf with. And I said, "Is it okay if I use your name when I call?" "Absolutely." That's the other question. You want to get permission, because that turns a cold lead into a warm lead. And if I give you a number and you say, "Well, Peter Leahy and I are friends, and he suggests I reach out, you might be willing to give me 15 or 20 minutes of your time to get a little bit of advice on my career, building my network," they're going to take the meeting. Now, maybe over coffee, that's the best. Maybe over Zoom, if it's not as easy, but maybe on the phone. But get the meeting, have the conversation. This is a really important one because where most people fail is they don't follow up. And my biggest sin that I did when I started LinkedIn and all this stuff, I didn't stay connected to people. And so I've had, I don't know how many people that over the course of my career that have impacted me. And there's only a small handful that I'm connected to, and that's my fault. It's amazing to me how many people I've coached. I mean, nothing compared to Foster or Pete. These guys have been doing it forever. I just started about a year ago. But hundreds of people, at least 500. And I would say less than 10% have ever followed up beyond maybe one email. And that's not me whining. It's just a missed opportunity. Because I get opportunities. I got a text this morning from a guy that's VP of sales for a company over here in Coppell. He's looking for a salesperson. I got that this morning. So now I'm going to be his recruiter. Sorry. I'm going to try to find somebody. I get stuff like that every day. Everybody gets stuff like that every day. But if you have a network and people are top of mind, the old expression is not who you know, but who knows you. You've heard that. I know a lot of people, and for some reason I kind of remember them. But you should follow up. If you meet somebody, don't just meet them once. Follow up. Send them a note every couple of weeks. How you do that? You track them. Put them on a spreadsheet of some sort. Follow up. When I was doing my magazine, there's a software program it's a subscription-based program called Send Out Cards. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. But you basically sign up and you can buy X number of cards, so like greeting cards. And they have 30,000 to choose from, all kinds of themes, birthdays, anniversaries, whatever it might be, or just thank yous or whatever. And you can type your note, and it'll look like it's handwritten. And they print it and mail it in the mail with a real stamp on it. Now, the problem is you got to know the address of somebody. And that's a challenge in today's world. But I sent out one year 700 cards to people, just thanking them for their conversations and staying in touch with them. And I made a list of the ones that I wanted to stay in the most touch with. And it's doable. Everything we're talking about here is just a choice. So let's try something. I'm going to get ahead of the game here, Pete, if I can do this. Why don't we take 5 minutes? We're going to deviate slightly, and I would like everybody to stand up and stick your hand out to somebody and just introduce yourself and ask them what they do, okay? Okay, all right, everybody. You guys are having way too much fun. Hang on, let's grab our seats real fast because we got to watch the clock. All right, look at that, it's still going. I love this. This is so good. All right, let's sit down. We'll wrap this thing up. So how hard was that? Was that hard? Anybody have a hard time? How'd everybody do? Anybody want to share their feelings? We're a very touchy-feely group here. Anybody? I'm going to share mine. So Lewis came over to me, and Lewis is just getting the hang of this. He's a tech guy. He's a programmer, software engineer. He's been doing it for 22 years. He's got an incredible amount of skill. He walked up to me, but I was able to get in there first because I'm better at it than he is. And I asked him what he does, and he told me he just got laid off, and he wasn't sure where to go, and that's just the truth, all right? When we go to a networking event, it's a game, and you got to play by the rules, and the rules is about positivity. So we worked on a new speech. My name's Lewis. I'm a software programmer. I'm amazing at what I do. I've been in this business for over 22 years, and I'm looking for some advice on what's the next company I should work for, right? Yeah. Perfect. That's it. So this takes practice, but literally you met people you never met before, and you guys were having so much fun. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Why do we make it so hard? And I think it's because we feel self-conscious. But don't, we're all humans. You think I've never been unemployed? I've been fired twice, been laid off twice. So trust me, and everybody in this room can have a relatable conversation like that. So we have to find a way to get over it. So, thing number one is just remember that networking involves a lot of different things. Pete, did you need something from me? We good? You good? Okay. So, it's not just this, but this is the easiest and the fastest way to get connections the human way. But it requires you to get out of your comfort zone, just like we saw. I mean, Lewis, the first time, he did great. He's going to get better every time, and because he's going to practice and he's going to think about it. And people when the second he gets somebody that's responsive, it's going to lift his confidence even more. And I love that, and you will. Trust me when I tell you that. The other thing is, you remember the word advice. Try to get everything else out of your mindset and just say, I just need advice from people. I'm just trying to connect with people. It's just a pretty simple thing. Some people are going to say yes. Some people are going to say no. Don't worry about it. Shake it off. Go to the next one. And then lastly, follow up and be authentic. So I have a question for you. So this is a completely different topic. I spoke about this last year, but I do mostly, starting out anyway, I do interview prep and training so that people feel more comfortable talking about themselves. And I wrote a book about this. Would anybody want this book? What? Okay, well, that was easy. There you go. Congratulations. All right. I'll be honest with you, that was a setup. And it was the setup for my last point, is nothing happens until you take action. He beat everybody in the room because he jumped up and said, I want it. Now, if I coached him, I wouldn't have even said, I do. I would have just raced up here and grabbed it and not even asked for permission. But that's kind of where we have to be. We have to get this mindset that we are in control. We are driving this car. We can sit in our room, in our office, wherever it might be, and stare at that screen, hoping that Indeed or one of the job boards is going to post a new job for you. Or you can do that for an hour, work on your star stories for an hour, and then go to a networking event. You can literally go to 2 a day if you really put your mind to it. Sometimes I meet people that are in such a difficult shape that they can't even afford the gas to go to one. So tell us. We have a lot of unbelievably generous people here. We've all, at one point, Foster, Pete, everybody on this team at one point has flipped out their wallet or whatever and handed over somebody $10 to get to a networking event, because that's how important they are. So ask for help. That's why we're here. These groups are so important because it also energizes you. It gives you another day of belief to just be able to go out there and do things. So I'm sorry that this was so random. I hope it helped a little bit, and I would like to open it up for questions if we could. Does anybody have a question or a comment? Yes, sir. We got a microphone.
I'm getting my workout in the morning.
That's a way to go, Pete.
Well, okay. Make sure this thing's okay. Okay, good. All right, good. Well, since we're on the subject of networking, I actually have an announcement. Hope that's okay.
Depends on what it is.
It's the about the that happy hour that you got to come to, that ABTP one. It's about that. Yeah. So the Association of Business and Technology Professionals is having a happy hour 3 weeks from today, February 25th. It's taking place at Bobby's Social House. It's at Frankfurt and the Dallas North Tollway. That's where it is, and so it'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. that night. And I would encourage everybody to attend if you're looking for a role in like a business or in the technology field, especially. I would encourage you to attend. It's you can sign up by going to abtpdfw.org and clicking on the events tab there, and you'll find the link to sign up. And Pete actually came to the last one, and he had a great time.
I did. All right. ABTP, Association of Business Technology Professionals, dfw.org. That's where you sign up.
And you can go there just for advice, too.
I love it. It's 10 minutes from where I live. I'll be there.
Was there another question? Surely you have some questions. Yes.
Hey, Peter, you mentioned that you knew of something on Thursday, a networking event. Can you expand on that?
Sure. It's not necessarily a networking event, but any gathering right now for you guys is a networking event. So you make a good point, Todd. We have a group, it's called the 859 Fellowship. It's a bunch of Christian guys. We get together every Thursday and we just talk about guy stuff. So it's in Las Colinas at a hotel called the Texican. We have a website called 859fellowship.com. Unfortunately, I run it, so most of the time it's up to date, but not always. But we meet every Thursday, and we have a group of 50 guys that have come through the group. We have maybe 15 or 20 on any given Thursday. It conflicts with South Lake Focus Group. And I will tell you that I would much rather have you go to South Lake Focus Group. We can save your soul another time, but right now we need to get you work. So that is the group, but any guy that wants to come by, we would love to have you. But there are lots of groups, and the one group that I
Peter,
one more.
this thing's not working. Guys, that 859 group is tremendous. You wouldn't believe some of the people that exist there. Now, everybody here has one of these things. It's not as big as mine, but everybody's got one of these things and two of these things. So I would strongly suggest that you guys get a chance. 859fellowship.com.
Yep.
Okay. And Peter will be there, so you can springboard off of him,
But
You'll be surprised.
It leads to another point that I didn't put on here on purpose because I wanted to talk about it. We are currently meeting in a church. And for many of you, you go somewhere to whatever religion you choose to believe in. And like at the church that I go to, the pastor of that church would be a great networking partner. I would have already talked to him if I was looking for a job. Because that church, our church has, I don't know, it's not huge, but it's not like this place, but a couple thousand members. I know for a fact there's a guy that runs about $1 billion company that comes to church every Sunday that's got a business in Southlake. He's got offices all over the country. I don't know him, but I know of him through another guy that I go to church. So that's just another example of when you're in job search mode, you tell everybody. You talk to everybody that you can. Tell your next door neighbor. That's the hardest thing to do. Because they think, wow, look at you, you're so successful. Yeah, I don't have a job. That's hard. But a friend of mine did that. He had just gotten laid off from a company and he didn't know what to do. I said, tell everybody. He talked to his next door neighbor. Guy says, oh, you should talk to my boss. He's looking for somebody with your background. And he got a contract. It was 6 months. But he double dipped all through his severance. So, yes.
Hello. Mine isn't a question, mine's an experience. I was fortunate enough to meet with Peter the first Friday in January, and it has changed the way my year started. So he gently kicked me in the butt because he simply said, you're not using your own connections. You're not going through your past leaders. And it was, I knew that, but it didn't click. So I went home and I went and reached out. I reached out to my old CIOs. I reached out to all my old leaders. And some of them I have not talked to in 5 to 8 years. Everybody agreed quickly to meet with me. It opened up doors that I wouldn't have had. One is writing a recommendation for me. One, I'm actually interviewing with their company. I'm in the interview process, but I wouldn't have even had that opportunity had I not reached out. And it was about taking that because, it put me out there at a different level, and I wouldn't have done it had I not sat down on a Friday with Peter and gone through that. And so go talk to him. Get over that. Oh goodness, it's been a minute since I talked to somebody, because those are the people they want to be your fan. They want to help. And I have another CIO that's retired, but she has a whole network, and she said, give me your resume, I will get it out to my network. So it's just having that connection, and so it works. And I just wanted to share that just because it's made a huge difference. Plus, it makes you feel good. I mean, job search is hard, and when I was coming off of something, I thought that was going to work out, and it didn't. So it re-motivated me to go to your fan base, because they know you, they know your work ethic, they want to help you, and it's proven a very positive month because of our conversation. So thank you.
The check's in the mail. I'll pay you. Wow, that's very humbling. Thank you so much, Ron.
Hey, Peter, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Most people that are going through job transition, probably the first hurdle they go through is, how do I structure my day? What do I do? How do I set a schedule?
Love that.
So can you give this audience maybe an idea of how to set up that structure so that at least they've got something to go into and not starting from scratch?
Sure. I will give you kind of the way I look at things, and I will first of all make the asterisk on it that I'm a sales guy, so generally I'm very unorganized. But what I learned how to do, and I did this, I told you I only started networking 10 years ago. It coincides with me buying a franchise. I owned a magazine. And it was a magazine that didn't exist. I had to create it. So imagine trying to sell advertising to somebody in a magazine that didn't exist. That's what I did. And I couldn't go to print with it until I had at least enough revenue to make the break even plus 20%. So what I did was I had to time block my day, just like Ron was talking about, and it's so critical. And we make this mistake when we're in job search mode, is that we just kind of take the day as it comes. So I would make a list of priorities that you have. So I will make sort of a list for you. Get healthy. First of all, every morning, spend some quiet time. Block out 30 minutes every morning, whatever time you want to start, where you're going to spend some quiet time and just get your head in the right place, however you want to do that. I read the Bible. Other people do different things. But start that. Then if you want to, if you have a gym membership, go work out or go take a walk. Make sure that you keep yourself healthy. You want to be mentally healthy, physically healthy, because this process will steal a little piece of you every day if you let it. So make sure that you prioritize what's important to you first. And if you have kids or grandkids, you got to work around school, you got to work around babysitting, whatever it might be. Those all go in there first. But literally, what I do is I pick these things, and then Google Calendar is great because you can color code them all. So everything that's about the gym is in one color, and everything about your quiet time's in one color. And like if you look at my calendar right now, I have appointments blocked out for the whole week, every afternoon. Now all of them are empty. But if somebody calls me and says, can you get together for a coffee, I'm going to look at my calendar and I'm going to figure out what's the easiest time and place to do that, and then I'm going to book it and I'm going to change the color. So and as a job seeker, we've talked about this at Southlake Focus Group, you should have 10 to 15 face-to-face meetings a week. It's a staggering number. My goal was on cold calling was to have a minimum of 10 to 12 appointments a week. And so I did that through the phone, which is the hardest. I did walk-ins to potential customers. I did tons and tons of networking with the mission to get an appointment. So the mistake that a lot of people make with networking, and this is the mistake you make when you're an extrovert that does presentations, is you forget stuff. When you meet somebody, like at a networking group, Ron, react to this. If somebody came up to you right now, and take the, you're so busy, I know the pit crew out of it, but if you were just somebody that would be willing and they said, it's really a pleasure to meet you. I'd love to get 20 minutes of your time next week to grab a coffee. How does Monday or Tuesday look for you? And they pull their phone out right in front of you. Would that be okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What we do, because we're afraid, is we get their business card. And you come home from the event and you got 20 business cards. Now you got to call them. And that's when the magic fails, because you got to call them. So if you're in the moment right now, pull out your phone. If you're time blocked, you already know what spaces you have open, and you book something. And that changed my life, because I would go to these chamber events, and of course, I'm uncomfortable. I'm selling a magazine that doesn't exist. I have zero confidence that it's even going to work for an advertiser. So I see the first guy that's a friendly face, I grab a beer, and I spend 2 hours talking to him. I'm like, I went to a networking event. No, you didn't do anything. So I realized I had to be purposeful in my networking. I had to work the room. So I would walk up to somebody, I would size them up fairly quickly, I'd ask them the questions I talked to you guys about. And if this guy was a geophysicist from SpaceX, maybe it would be interesting, maybe not, but he wasn't going to buy an ad from me, so I talked to him, and it was friendly, but then I would move on. You have people that are not friendly, don't waste your time. And we can get stuck. And the other idea that's pretty fun, go in pairs. Have a wingman. Because sometimes wingmen can bail you out of a stuck. You have a signal. You do this or something to your wingman, and they'll come over and say, hey, you got to meet this guy, and they'll drag you away. It works. Trust me, it does. But this is all part of this long-term strategy. But block out the things you want to get done that week, and then set goals. Hold yourself accountable. Like Pete and Foster and I were doing a talk over at Southlake Focus Group about networking, and that was a few months ago. And there were 100 people in the room just about like this, and I asked everybody who met an interesting person today. Everybody. And then I said, how many of you have an appointment with that person next week for a coffee? None of them. And that's the miss, right? So this is an amazing opportunity. There is incredible talent in this room. Mm-hmm. They're just looking too. But that doesn't mean they can't help you. I mean, just listening to Shannon for 20 minutes, you probably have 50 people in your phone that for the right person could be extremely helpful to connect with them. But until somebody actually asks him for his time, nothing happens. I can hold up the book, but the crazy man in the back has to run up and grab it. So you need to be that crazy man. Yes, sir. A couple more questions. Thank you for these questions. This is great. Did that help a little, Ron? I don't know if I...
why don't we take a break, and then when we come back, let's entertain a lot of these questions.
Let's two more questions, then we'll do that. Is that okay, Foster?
John's the boss.
This lady right here. Lady in the purple.
Oh, that's where I'm going. But Mark
Yes,
jumped
sir.
up first.
I was just going to make a quick comment because, I mean, a lot of you are good at asking who should I talk to, but one of the things that I really think you guys need to focus on is action items, right? Because you have a great conversation and there's no ask, there's no action item. So in your who should I talk to, if they give you a name, be sure to ask them for the introduction. A personal introduction is going to go way further than just reaching out blind. So make sure that you're asking for that introduction. If they're willing to give you a name, just go one step further and say, hey, would you mind maybe just shooting an intro message via LinkedIn or something and making that warm handoff?
Can I just make a comment? And that's a great point. But philosophically, this is the sales guy in me. I never ask somebody to do something I can do for myself. So while a warm introduction is fantastic, a lot of people will say yes, and then they won't do it. And it's a great idea, don't get me wrong, and I thank you for sharing it, because most people will. But what happens when somebody says, give me a couple of resumes, I'll spread them around? Well, what does that do for you? You say, you know what, that's wonderful, but if there's a couple people that you know that I should reach out to directly, just keep digging, because so many people will say yes, and then nothing ever happens. And so that's what I can't tell you how many people that I presented my magazine to that said, this is fantastic, let me just think about it. And for the first couple months, I was like, oh, that's great. Well, nothing happened. So, yeah.
One question. Sarah has to go, so go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, I am a CPA controller, so I've reached out to the folks I know in the financial world.
Mm-hmm.
I know other folks, but what is my ask for somebody that has nothing to do with my world?
You're trying to build your network.
Okay. It just seems like a huge ask for somebody to meet with me to build my network.
Well, can you give them a little bit of direction on who you might want to meet? Would you want to, in your role, who would be the kinds of businesses you would want to meet?
Smaller to mid-sized companies who need a controller.
No, just
I'm
smaller,
sorry.
mid-sized companies, business owners.
Yes, exactly.
So all you want to do is go meet business owners. So if you go to the membership director for the Irving Chamber and you say, I'm a very competent CPA controller and I'm looking to build my network in the financial community, could you give me a little bit of advice on people that I should be talking to? And they might say, well, do you know Steve Johnson? He's the CEO of the new credit union that just opened up in town or whatever. And it's such a great question because we don't necessarily have to be 100% over the target. We just want to meet executives. And one of the things I learned, and I'm sorry, Foster, to keep rambling, I know we got to take a break, but as I got up the food chain, when I was the VP of sales for this pet food company, I had a $30 million salary budget. And so I always had salary slide, and we were always looking for people. But if I saw people I really, really wanted, I hired them, and then we posted it. But the more senior they are, they know people. They are connected to lots of different things, and it's such a good question though because it seems so crazy. Like with Leo, he's the CEO of the beer company, so I just said, I could work at a beer company. That's what I thought. So I just said, hey, I'm thinking about getting into the beer industry, but I'm not sure where to start. Would love to pick your brain. Something like that. You can make it very innocuous, but you're just trying to build your network. That's what I like to tell people. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that helps at all. We can talk some more if you like, but all right, Foster, let's take a break.